Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode in our Creative Careers series where we talk with people with arts-related jobs all over. So today our guest is Spring Karlo. Thank you so much for joining us today, Spring.
Hi.
So we're talking with you because you are an agent. Please tell us a little bit about what exactly does an agent do, and maybe specifically what do you do?
Sure. So I am a co-director in a booking agency called Holden and Arts Associates. We've specifically been around for about 35 years, specializing in productions that do tours all across North America. Most of our artists are international. Coming from countries like the UK, Australia, we have a company from South Korea this year, but we do have some American artists as well. And so what we try to do is work as the middleman, between our artists, really getting to know a show inside and out, top to bottom, tech, content, all those things, in order to then make it a good match with our venues. And we have a network of about, I would say, around 800 to 1,000 venues across all of North America, both the US and Canada. And for the most part, we're dealing with performing arts centers, much like Luther Burbank, but we're also dealing with sometimes regional arts councils, or PTA, parent-teacher groups that have a specific donor or funding initiative to bring in work to schools. So most of our work is bringing productions, large-scale theater shows, everything from a giant Cat in the Hat with like an 8-person cast and all the bells and whistles. But we do also sometimes have tiny shows that are maybe not just theater-based, but we've had some really beautiful, tiny Danish puppets in the past, things like that. A lot of our work is driven by either educational or student curriculum ties. A lot of our presenters, our venues bring in these productions for their young audiences. So student matinees where kids are bussed in on field trips, or we have some presenters that have family series where they offer these shows, on a weekend for a public audience.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get here? When were you first interested in this kind of thing? When did you know this was something you could do?
I mean, it's a
And what did you
random
do?
job. Growing up and being in college, I didn't even really know it existed. I had heard of agents, but in the sense of TV and film, right? You represent an actor. I have a background in theater. I went to the University of Texas in Austin, where I was a playwriting major, technically. After college, I bounced around a little bit, ended up in Chicago, where I was working in a bunch of different aspects of arts administration. I had found, for me, since I wasn't a performer, my playwriting mojo kind of dried up a little bit, but I was still really invested and interested in supporting the arts. And so I started kind of pivoting, learning as much as I could just by getting on the front lines. I was a front of house manager. I was a box office manager. I was writing grants for people. I was really just getting behind the scenes in learning how to produce a show, what goes into making, a piece of art that is so easy to get behind, but how does it get on its feet? And having that background and understanding the nuts and bolts of what makes a production work really helped me when I found this job. I interviewed when I moved down back to Texas in 2011, and just kind of lucked into the job application. And I was very fortunate in that the founders of my agency, Michael and Teresa Holden, saw something in my background, both in production, like as a producer and as a front of house, kind of behind the stage kind of person, but also in my love for storytelling. My background as a playwright, my background as a tour guide, which is a totally different story, means that I'm really interested in sharing stories and sharing the best light of things and getting people to fall in love with the gorgeous, complicated nuances that are baked into each of these topics that I'm passionate about. And so, I mean, that's what makes a good sales job. And that's really what being an agent is. You know, I'm on the phone a lot. I'm emailing folks a lot. And to do that, you really need to be passionate about the work you represent.
Awesome. That kind of ties into the next question here. I like how you brought up that this was a good fit for you because it wasn't necessarily, it was connected to theater, but it wasn't a performance based. And I think there are a lot of people who love theater, but don't feel like they want to perform or like they're capable of it for whatever reason. And so, yeah. So what for people who may be like that and thinking, oh, maybe this is a good fit, what makes being an agent really, really unique among any other behind the scenes arts careers? Why does it stand out for you?
I love being an agent because you kind of need to have an understanding of a lot of different pieces of the pie. You know, like my background in being a producer means that I understand marketing. So I can kind of look at imagery, the story, the text, the narrative that's coming out of the marketing side and have an opinion on that. My background in being an artist, being a playwright, means I can also tackle things on an artistic level. My background as a producer, you know, lets me look at a budget, lets me look at a technical writer and be able to read it, understand it, and then translate it for other people. So I think an agent really has this unique advantage of a big picture, you know, and being an advocate for the work itself, in a way that sometimes as an artist, you're almost too close, you know, that there's sometimes it's hard for artists to talk about the business of their work. And this is how, as an arts administrator, you can kind of step in, and sometimes it means you're being the bad cop because you're asking for money. But it really means you're an advocate for the artist and for the show. You're trying to find the very best fit for it in a venue, because if you put a too large of a show in a too small of a venue, no one's going to be happy. And you really want to be building bridges between people, between the artist and the venue, and then the venue and their communities. You know, so I find that very empowering. The fact that even though I am not putting myself there out as an artist anymore, the fact that I can help artists and help venues do this incredibly important work, you know, makes me feel very fulfilled and very, very satisfied.
Yeah. I like that you talked about using all the different pieces of your theater background and using the skills from there. What were some of the other skills that you had to work on when you stepped into this role that were different from what you had really done before?
I mean, I don't know if I would say different, but I would say there's a very heavy emphasis on listening, you know, listening to the venues when they say what they need, what they're looking for, listening to the production when the production says what it needs or what it's looking for. I am a habitual note taker. Communication is one of the best skills that you need in this job, and listening is obviously a big part of that. But there's so much information going on at once that one of the things that I've had to work on is creating systems so that I'm not keeping all 400 venue conversations in my territory in my brain, but that I'm actually writing them down, you know, that I'm, you know, putting my notes in a way that I understand them later, and in a way that is honoring the information that the venue shared with me, but then also honoring, you know, what each production needs. So it's about being sometimes brutally honest. You know, as an agent, we're not really in the business of saying no, but we need to get down to the nitty gritty of, like, is this a good fit? You know, can you technically support this show? Are you looking for a show that is targeting a specific age range, which this show is not? So I don't know if they are new skills necessarily, or if it was just about sharpening the emphasis on some of them.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. Final thought here. Obviously, this is going out while students are stuck at home, not necessarily able to go out and do anything. And this especially is a job that kind of has a whole bunch of different pieces for it. But if somebody was watching this and thought that's something I might want to do, what would be something that they could do right now from their homes that would sharpen maybe some of these skills that are really valuable in this work?
I think if you're interested in being an agent from home, you know, the first place that for us, like as an agency, that we always start with is the work, you know, the productions themselves, the art itself, and getting familiar with what that is. My background might be in theater, but it's not in puppetry, so I've now seen a ton of puppet shows to help expand my vocabulary and my knowledge around that art form. If there's an art form that you love, that, maybe you're really into dance right now, and you can't get out and see dance. There's a lot of dance being shown live on these streaming platforms that these artists are offering on their YouTube channels. So you can still get out and see you can still see a lot of work, even though we're at home right now. And I think expanding your vocabulary or expanding your palette of what you like, or what you don't like, is something that you can still be doing right now.
That's awesome. And actually, we have just a minute or two left. So I'm curious. I sometimes like to ask this: is there a like a proudest moment or a favorite accomplishment for you, like a highlight of your of this?
There's a couple of ones that mean a lot. On a personal note, I've been able to book shows here to our hometown, and been able to bring some of our international companies, to our local presenting house, the Paramount in Austin, and then share that with our friends and family, which has been really powerful. An extension of that is, I was able to invite a friend of ours to one of our shows, actually in Philadelphia. And he brought his children, and it was the first time that his children had ever been in the theater. And they're very young, and I don't know if one of them will even remember it when she's older, but the older one, who is maybe 5, definitely still talks about it. And it was not just the show, but he also talks about that. But he was also like counting all the million lights in the sky, and just the actual experience of walking into a room and then being like transformed by that experience. It was really, really great, the fact that I could share that. I don't have children of my own, but with my friends' children's and with my families, that are around us, we work so much on a national level that to see that reaction in the audience right next to you is just really, really great.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your understanding with us today, Spring.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Hope everyone's doing well out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all, watchers and viewers. And don't forget to tune in again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for more Let's Be Creative Arts content. Thanks.